Joining us now on the line is KT McFarland, National Security Analyst, Fox News, all-around great gal. Hello, KT.
Good morning.
How you doing? Everything good?
Everything's terrific.
All right. Well, you know, the world's in a turmoil. I mean, let's just start with what's going on in Iraq right now. Just give me your sense, because, you know, look, it sounds like the whole idea here is that jihadists are going to take over the whole darn country, and they're now moving in on Baghdad one ears.
Well, jihadists are fighting the Iran-backed Iraqi government, and as far as I can tell, if it's Al-Qaeda, who are our enemies, versus Iran, who are enemies, why do we try to stop them? If they're killing each other, don't try to stop them. But do understand that the reason we're in the Middle East in the first place is we have strategic interests. So can we meet those strategic interests any other way than getting ourselves in the middle of a fight between two enemies? I think we can, because I think our strategic interests are oil, terrorists, and Israel. You know, we want their oil, we don't want their terrorists, and we want Israel to survive. So if we can get our oil someplace else other than the Middle East, like North America, United States Oil and Natural Gas, Keystone Pipeline, that's where we should be getting our energy. And as far as the terrorists, if our goal is to prevent them from coming to the United States, and we think, well, we'll go and do Iraq, we'll occupy Iraq, make sure they don't set up shop there. Well, it was the same argument we had about Afghanistan. And terrorists are like cockroaches. If you get rid of them in one country, they run to another country. So I think the better way of defending America is to, first of all, protect our own borders, which we have. We seem to have an open border on the south. We need to make sure we know who's in this country and to secure the border. And secondly, redirect our anti-terrorist activities. So instead of looking at 350 million Americans the same way, let's start narrowing that search to look for people who have behavior patterns that are like terrorists.
But if ISIS, this terror group, ends up toppling the government in Baghdad, they're going to have not only a whole bunch of oil wealth at their disposal, but a whole lot of armaments that we left behind. If we had kept a more substantial footprint of military there in Iraq and a more judicious exit strategy, would we have been better off? Would our interests be better protected at this point?
Sure. But I think that Washington is now so focused on whose fault this is, you know, where the Obama people are saying, well, it's all Bush's fault because of the original sin of invading Iraq. And the Bush people are all saying, oh, it's Obama's fault for leaving prematurely. You'll never know. Okay, it is what it is, and instead of there's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, there's nobody seeping in glory except maybe the United States men and women in uniform. But I think we should admit that, look, Bush shouldn't have gone in, Obama shouldn't have gone out. Enough said, now what do you do?
Yeah.
And how do you achieve the strategic interests, very real strategic interests we have in the region, other than trying to get into the middle of, what would this be now, our third Iraq war?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, though. We're sending in some troops to secure the embassy. That seems to be the main purpose of those troops.
And to get people out. There are 20,000 Americans. We got to get them out as fast as we can.
All right, so that's what they're doing there. And some people have said, well, maybe the president should consider airstrikes.
Yeah, but again, I mean, that's a tactical thing. I guess that buys you a little bit of time. But who are you going to strike with the airstrikes? The 2,000... probably 2,000, maybe 3,000 ISIS, the Al-Qaeda bad guys.
Yeah.
They've blended in with the Sunni population. In some cases, they've been welcomed by the Sunni population in the Sunni Triangle. So you don't really want to bomb and drone civilian areas. On the other hand, if you look at, who are we going to fight, who are we going to defend, there's a 65,000-person Iraqi army that has been trained and equipped by the United States to the tune of something like $60 billion. The leadership of them, the officers, they threw down their arms and ran away. So we got one military of 2,000 bad guys, 65,000 we thought they were good guys, and so 2,000 are somehow defeating 65,000.
Yeah, how's that happening?
Yeah, how's that happening, and how does us getting involved on the side of the 65,000 help.
Yeah. Katie McFarland, over the past year, whenever we've talked about the terror attacks in Benghazi, you've often spoken about Ahmed Abu Khattala, the mastermind behind that attack, and you've often said, he's sitting there sipping his strawberry frappes, right?
Yep.
And, now we've got him in custody, and yesterday the Pentagon spokesman brushed aside any suggestions that he was hiding in plain sight and we could have gotten him before now.
Terrorists go to great lengths to evade capture, and it can be it can be a complicated process.
But KT, in this case, so many reporters talked to this guy and sat with him, and he sort of laughed at the idea that they haven't even tried to talk to him, let alone apprehend him. Why do you think it took him this long, and why do you think now is the time that the Obama administration decided to bring him into custody?
Well, I think the timing's a little convenient. We're now about to have Benghazi hearings. Secretary Clinton is on her book tour. Benghazi is one of the major issues that she'll have to confront and answer for. And so I think it's a little convenient that they got this guy. I mean, they've known where he's been for a good 2 years. But I'm glad they got him. The bottom line is I'm glad they finally got him. But on the other hand, I do think the timing has much more to do with American domestic politics than it does
really?
with than the security of the country.
How cynical of you, KT.
But in the end of the day, I'm glad they got him.
Yeah, I mean, we're all glad, but I mean, there have been suggested that anybody who looks at this thing and smells politics is somehow un-American.
Look, I think that this administration looks at everything through the eyes of the domestic political lens. What's best for them at the next election? What's best for them for campaign contributions? I mean, how else do you explain not approving the Keystone Pipeline, which would be a boon to the American economy, would have a secondary effect of manufacturing jobs which return to the United States, would have a tertiary effect of making us no longer as dependent on the Middle East oil, and finally would have the effect of denying the Middle East a lot of revenues which are fueling their terrorist attacks. Oil is the mother's milk of terrorists.
Right.
And if you really want to nip terrorism, you really want to hurt that whole cause, get everybody off Middle East Arab oil, because it's Arab oil money that's fueling that. And the Chinese have a proverb that says if you want to kill a snake, you can either cut off his head or you can starve him. Well, we've tried to kill the snake by cutting off his head for the last decade, and it hasn't worked real well. The snake is bigger in more places than ever before. I think it's time we start starving this snake by getting rid of the Arab oil money and the access that terrorist groups have on both sides of the issue.
Katie McFarland, always a pleasure. Thank you.